How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Nun Gimel, Daf 53 of Masechta BavaBasra. Friends, today's a very cool Daf. I don't know why I've gotten myself all worked up about this sugya, but anyways, I mean, I've explained why I'm all worked up about this sugya. It's because we've been hearing about it for years, and I've always been kind of curious about it. But anyways, we're starting to get into the kind of chazaka that makes a kinyan, right? I mean, ever since at least Kedushin, right? We've been talking about nechasim sheyesh lam achrayis niknin bekesef b'shtar b'chazaka. That you can be kone, let's say, property by making a chazak on it. How do you make a chazak on it? You put up a fence or something. Tell me more. So we're gonna start today's daf. We're gonna start learning about what that entails. How do you make a chazaka, right? On, let's say, on property, right? Because we mentioned recently within the past few days, I think, how I could think of three different kinds of chazaka, right? There's a chazaka that we've been talking about in Chezkas Abatim until this point, for the most part, which is kind of in lieu of a shtar, a replacement, instead of a shtar. There's also the kind of chazaka that if if you do something, let's say 3 times, or something happens 3 times, then there's chazaka, right? Or it's machlokes 2 or 3 times. But now there's this kind of chazaka oichid, if you can make a kinyan with a chazaka. So what does that entail? Okay, so we're going to start learning that sugya today. Here we go. So it says the Gemara, we're going to start in Daf Nun Beis Amud Beis, about 10 plus lines from the bottom at the 2 dots. Rabbi Yisrael, how you doing? So when do we say this? I think you could basically this. I guess the first part of the Mishnah, but I think also basically essentially the whole parak up until now, all this talk about the chazaka, that's 3 years instead of a shtar, right? That whole stuff. When do we say that? When he's making a chazaka, the Gemara is about to ask a shaila. But if you give a gift, or if siblings are dividing up an estate from their father, well then v'chulei, etc. So autokol ha, right? There's this other kind, right? There's no agadar ufaretz, which we're going to start talking about today. So autokolani da'aminon la b'nei chazakaninu, right? There's a funny lashon in the Mishnah. It says, let's read it again. B'amid v'amur b'machzik. This is talking about somebody who's making a chazaka, but knows if somebody's giving a gift, or the brothers are dividing up an estate, or by nichse ager. So what? Autokolani da'aminon la b'nei chazakaninu. What? By an estate, by a gift, you're not making a chazaka. It says right again. B'amid v'amur b'machzik. Those are, right, up until now, we've been talking about chazaka. And what about, and somebody gives a gift when we're talking about making a kinyan with a chazaka, that's not a chazaka? Well, okay, you have to add a few words to the Mishnah. What are we talking about up until now? Everything we've been talking about now, the whole 3 years thing, that is by a chazaka that has with it a claim. Kigon, for example, mocher omer lo macharti, lokeach omer lakachti, right? For example, right up until now, right, we've been talking about a chazaka that's betzim in lieu of a shtar, right? Shimon was the original owner of the field. Reuven now has it, right? Shimon says, "What are you doing here? It's my field." Reuven says, "No, it isn't. I bought it from you." So we have a claim there. So now to support Reuven's claim that he bought it from Shimon, and he doesn't have a document, but he has a chazaka, so that can work. Right, so the chazaka we've been talking about now, up until now, is a situation where there's a taina. I have a chazaka she'eni mataina, but a chazaka where there is no claim, kigon, for example, nosen matana. For example, Shimon gives, let's say, property to Reuven as a gift. Shimon isn't coming and saying, "What are you doing here?" Fakert, he's giving it to him as a gift. How does Reuven make a kinyan on it? On a gift? Or if you have brothers, let's say you have 2 brothers and dividing up their father's estate. So Shimon takes this property, Reuven takes that property. How do they make a kinyan on it to make it theirs? Right? Or if a proselyte passes away and there's no relatives, so what happens to all of his property? first come, first serve. So if you run, you make a dash you make an Olympic sprint to his field, how do you make a kinyan on it? How do you actually take ownership of it? All you need there is simply to make a kinyan. There's no claim. You're not trying to counter a claim. Nobody's saying, what are you doing here? You're simply trying to make a kinyan. So in that case, when all you want to do is make a kinyan, how do you make a kinyan chazaka? It is by putting a lock on the field, or putting up a fence, or making a breach in the fence. Right, kosher, even if it's just a little bit. That's going to be a chazaka, and the Gemara is going to talk about in a minute what exactly it means a little bit, right? But the point is, you're making some kind of improvement to the property, right? You acquire it by making some kind of an improvement to the property. That's how you make a kinyan on the property. The Gemara is going to talk about what does it mean like a little bit, right? You make a fence a little bit. What does a little bit mean? All right. I think it means like even a little bit, meaning if you do more than a little bit, then givaldig, right? Certainly that shows kind of ownership of it. But okay. Tani Rav Oshai topic Kiddushin Devei Levi. Right, Levi had his own Toseftas, right? Reb Chia, Reb Oshai, and that's interesting. There's a different case that says Sheravia, Rav Sheravia. Maybe they don't want to say that it's Reb Oshai because Reb Oshai had his own brises. Interesting. Anyways, whatever, we'll just read it as it's written. Tani Rav Oshai b'Kiddushin Devei Levi in the Tosefta, in Levi's collection of Toseftas. Noal Godar Paratz Kolshu. Okay, if he locks the field or puts up a fence, or breaches a fence, Kolshu even a little bit. Bifanov, in front of him, Harezo Chazaka. Then it's a Chazaka, implying that in order for, let's say, Reuven to make a Chazaka on Shimon's field, right? So say Shimon is giving Reuven his field as a gift. So in order for Reuven to be able to make a chazaka on it, or let's even say, let's actually say for now it's a sale. Okay, so Shimon is selling his field to Reuven, and Reuven's going to make a kinyan on it by way of a chazaka. So we're saying bifanav, Shimon would have to be there. So when Reuven puts up that fence, so Shimon would have to be there. So frekti Gemara. B'fanav in shelo b'fanav lo. What? A kinyan chazaka only works if the seller is there. If the seller is not there, then the kinyan chazaka does not work. Omar Rave says, Rave Achikam, this is what it means. B'fanav lo tzarich l'meimar lech chazek uknei. Shelo b'fanav tzarich l'meimar lech chazek uknei. The difference is that, if Shimon is selling Reuven his field and they work out the deal, they work out, okay, this is how much it's going to cost or whatever, and they shake on it, and now while Shimon is still there, Reuven puts up locks on the gate, and now it's his. So even though Shimon didn't explicitly say to Reuven, okay, Reuven, now you can go and make a chazaka on it, but he's there, and he sees that Reuven is making the chazaka, and he doesn't say anything. So that is a valid chazaka. But if Shimon was not there at the time, well then Reuven just going and putting up a lock on the field would only work if Shimon had explicitly said to him, Lech chazek uknei, okay, now go and make a make a kinyan chazaka. So if Shimon is there, if it's in his presence, then Reuven can make a kinyan chazaka even if Shimon didn't explicitly say lech chazek uknei, go and make a chazaka and make a kinyan via chazaka. But if Shimon is not there, so then Shimon would have to explicitly say lech chazek uknei in order to allow Reuven to be kone b'chazaka. Boy, Rav asks a kasha, matona heich. What about a gift? Right, we just made this distinction by a sale. Okay, that if Shimon is selling his property to Reuven, so we make this distinction that if Shimon is there, then Reuven can be kone v'aya chazaka, even if Shimon did not explicitly say lech chazek uknei. But if Shimon is not there, then Shimon would have to explicitly say Lech Hazek Uknei. That's by a sale. What about by a gift? Would it be the same? Would it be the same? The same rules? So Amar Shmuel says, Shmuel, Maiti boy le'la'aba. Shmuel says, I don't understand what Rav is asking. Obviously, the same would apply to a gift. Hashto ma mecher, because after all, if by a sale, dika yoiv le'zuzeh, that Reuven is paying Shimon, is going to be paying Shimon, and therefore Shimon has what to gain by it, and still we say, wait, Reuven, don't do anything until you hear Shimon say, Lech Hazek Uknei. That only if Shimon, even though he stands to gain and make money off of the sale, still we have to wait for him to say the magic words, Lech Hazek Uknei. And if he doesn't say them, then the Kinyan Chazaka doesn't work. Meaning, so long as it's not in Shimon's presence. Matana lo kol shekain, well then certainly by a gift, where Shimon is not gaining anything, he's only giving, certainly we'd have to wait for him to say Lech Hazek Uknei in order to proceed with the Chazaka. So long as Shimon is not in the presence at the time of the Chazaka. V'Rav Sover. So what was Rav thinking? How come Rav asked the kasha? Well, because Rav assumed, Rav was of the position, that if somebody is giving a gift, he's being generous. Kilu, a sale is by the books. Wait, don't do anything until I say so. But by a gift, Shimon is giving Reuven property as a gift. He's being generous. So therefore I would think maybe when Shimon says, Reuven, here you can have the field, he can go to the field and make a Kinyan Chazaka, even though Shimon didn't explicitly say Lech Hazek Uknei, because Shimon is after all being very generous. Alright. V'chama kolshu. So now the Gemara asks, what does it mean a little bit? Right? We said if he goes and he puts up a little bit of a fence, then it's already a Chazaka. I assume if he puts up a lot of bit of a fence, then it's all the more so, meaning then it's definitely a Chazaka. But we're saying even if he puts up a fence a little bit, what does it mean to put up a fence a little bit, or to make a breach a little bit? What's a little bit, as opposed to a lot of it, or none of it? V'chama kolshu, how much is a little bit? Kiddush Shmuel, it's like Shmuel Damar Shmuel, it says Shmuel. Godar Geder B'Shlimo La'asara, that if he, I guess there was already a fence there, and he but it wasn't 10 tfachim, but he made it 10 tfachim. Or he made a breach so that you can go in and out of it. That would be a chazaka. But still, the Gemara, okay, we're not done here yet. Tell me more about this fence. Tell me more about this fence that he's making 10 tfachim. Well, if initially, even though the fence may not have been 10 tfachim tall, but it still got the job done, it kept the people out. Well then, if initially it kept the people out, and now he makes it taller, and all the more so it's keeping the people, it's continuing to keep the people out, well, he didn't make any improvement at all. What was the improvement that he made? He made it taller. It didn't need to be taller. It was doing the job beforehand. So if initially the people were unable to get in, and they're still unable to get in, so there's not a little bit of an improvement. There's no improvement. There's no net improvement at all. So rather, let's say it's talking about where, well, initially everybody was able to get into the field, and now that he increased the height of the field, now the people can't get in. So before they could get in, now they can't. Well, that's not a little bit of an improvement, that's day and night. That's a huge improvement. Nobody can get in anymore. Until then, everybody can get in. Now nobody can get in. That's a humongous improvement. Tuva, that's not a little improvement, that's a lot of improvement. So So rather what a little bit of an improvement means is that before anybody was just able to get, it was a nothing of a fence, anybody can get into the field, it was very easy. But now, after he increased the height of it, it's 10 tfachim now, you could still get in, but it's harder. And that's a little bit of the improvement. You could still get in. It's not day and night. It's not like before they can get in, now they can't. you could still get in, but it's more difficult. And therefore it keeps some of the people out. So it's a little bit of an improvement. That would be enough to make a chazaka. Hi pirza, echidami, and what's pshat with the pirza, with the breach, that if you make a breach, so now people can get in, what does that look like? Well, if they were able to get, if there was already a breach there that people were able to get through, and now they could still get through, so what improvement did he make? Maya Ovad, what improvement did he make? Rather, okay, let's say that initially the people couldn't get in, but now they can. Well, again, that's day and night. Tuva Avad, he did quite a bit. Before there was no entranceway, now there is. That's a humongous improvement. So rather, it's talking about where initially people were able to kind of squeeze their way in, but now they can mamish go in, bechavod, and it's mamish a very pleasant experience going into the field now. So that's a little bit of improvement. Kilu, they were able to get in before then already also, but now they can get in a shtickle better. So a little bit of an improvement. Okay, so we're saying that by a chazaka, even just making a little bit of an improvement to the property, right? You make the fence a little bit more, a little bit better, or you make an opening a little bit wider, or I guess you make a lock in a way that's a little bit of an improvement. I think Rashbam actually said something about the lock. Is there anything? Yeah. Shekova man also vasha. Man o badelis lin olbo tanu binyan. I was okay. I guess I don't know. Somehow the lock. Gemara doesn't really say how the lock would be like a little bit of an improvement, but I guess you improve it in a way that's like a little bit better. All right. Fine. One second. All right. Let's go weiter. So I think the Rashbam gives it, right, the Rashbam says, V'gabinol nami, koshu nami, ikelefushike agam, shesosam pesach sim, that he closed an opening, koshu de meikara, ayla b'rav chavashka, ayla b'dochka, also that it makes it more difficult to get in, but not entirely prevents him. Says the Gemara, Amr Asi, Amr Yochanan, it says Abasi Amr Yochanan Nasan Suror v'Hoil, if he places a stone and it makes an improvement, Notel Suror v'Hoil, or he removes a stone and it makes an improvement, Harei ze chazaka. So then that would be considered a chazaka, an improvement to the field. My nasan or my notel, how do you place a stone or remove a stone and by doing so make an improvement? So if what it means is that there was water that was going to flood his field, and he took a stone and he closed the breach, thus preventing his field from flooding. Right? Or what it means that he removed a stone is that his field was being flooded with water, and he removed a stone so that the water would be able to drain out. So that's not making an improvement to the field, that's preventing damage from the field. That's chasing away a lion from your friend's property. Kilu, every yid should do that. Ben adam lachavero, right? You see that your friend's field is about to get flooded, so you close up the breach, or your friend's field is being flooded, so you remove the rock to make a drain so that the water could drain out. That's not making a chazaka. That's doing a favor for your friend. Rather, what it means is that he placed a rock so that the water would be able to gather not to flood the field, but to irrigate the field, to make an improvement that way. Or he removed a rock so that water can get into the property also to be able to irrigate the field. So either he put in a stone so that the water would stay there, enough water not to flood the field but to irrigate the field, or he removed the stone, thus allowing water into the field in order to irrigate the field. So in those cases, that causes an improvement to the field, and that would be and you would be able to you can make a chazaka that way. V'amr Rav Asi Rabbi Yochanan, Shtei sodis umeitzer echad benein. If you have two fields, totally spaced out. Shtei sodis. If you have two fields, umeitzer echad benein, and there is a border between the two fields. Hechzik be'achas men liknoso. So if he makes a chazaka on one of the fields in order to make a kinyan on it, kana. So he makes a kinyan on the field. Liknos oso v'eschaverta. What if he made a kinyan on one of the fields in order to make a kinyan not just on that field but also on the next door field? Oso kana chaverta lo kana. The chazaka would only work to make a kinyan on the field that he made the chazaka in, but not the other field. Liknos eschaverta af oso lo kana. And if he makes a chazaka on Ruvain the field, but the point of the chazaka was in order to be kona Shimon the field, it doesn't work at all. Let's not use Reuven and Shimon to describe fields. But anyways, if he makes a chazaka on, you have two fields, Reuven the field and Shimon the field. So if he makes a chazaka on Reuven the field in order to be kona Reuven the field, so then it works. If he makes a kinyan on Reuven the field in order to be kona Reuven the field and Shimon the field, he's only kona Reuven the field. If he makes a kinyan chazaka on Reuven the field in order not to be kona Reuven the field but to be kona Shimon the field, well then he's kona gunish, not kona anything. By Reb Zera has to take ukasha. Hechzik ba'achas mein. What if he makes a chazaka in one of the field, Reuven the field, liknos osa ve'esa meitzer ve'eschaverto, in order to make a kinyan not just on the field but also on the border, also on the boundary of the field, and then also the next field. So Kilu is making a kinyan on the ganze Zach potentially. So what do we say? Mi aminen meitzer de'ara chadu. Do we say that, well, the border of the land is like connected to the land, so if he makes a kinyan on the land and also the border, he could then also extend that to the next field as well. Vikani, and he's going to the ganze Zach through this chazaka. Or maybe those two fields would still be considered separate, or I guess the field and the boundary would be considered separate, that they're all separate things and you can't be kona one of them to be kona all of them. That would not work. Teku, we say chveis nicht. By Rabbi Elazar also asked to teku kasha. Hechzik b'meitzer liknos shtein ma'al. What if he makes a kinyan? What if he makes a chazaka on the boundary, on the border, on the boundary? And by doing so, he wants to be kona both fields by making a chazaka on the boundary. Do we say hi meitzer afsra de'arahu vikani? Do we say that the boundary is considered like the reins of an animal, right? Now, for example, if you have multiple animals and you pull all of them by the reins, right? I mean, there's one reins that's connected to all the animals, and you give a pull on the reins, so you can be kona all the animals. So maybe by making a chazaka on the boundary, you can be kona all adjacent fields. Maybe no, they're considered separate. Teku, ich weiß nicht. Amar of Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avo Shnei Botim. If you have two houses, zelef nim mizeh. Interesting. So you have two like apartments, but you have to walk through one apartment to get to the other apartment. So hechzik bachitzon, if he makes a chazaka on the outer apartment, liknoso, in order to make a kinyan on the outer apartment, kano. Okay, so he makes a kinyan on the outer apartment. Liknos also vesapnimi, if he makes a chazaka on the outer apartment to be kona it as well as the inner apartment, chitzon kona pnimi lo kona, he's only kona the outer apartment, not the inner apartment, because the outer apartment has no connection to the inner apartment. But the inner apartment is dependent on the outer apartment. The outer apartment has no dependency on the inner apartment. So if he's kona the outer apartment with the chazaka, in order to be kona not just the outer apartment but also the inner apartment, he's only kona the outer apartment. Liknos is apnimi av chitzonami lo kona, and if he makes a chazaka on the outer apartment in order to be kona the inner apartment, not the outer apartment, then he's not kona anything. Hechzik bepnimi, if he makes a chazaka on the inner apartment, liknoso, to acquire the inner apartment, make a kinyan on the inner apartment, kano, so he makes a kinyan. Liknos also vesachitzon, if the intention is to be kona the inner apartment and the outer apartment, which you must walk through in order to get to the inner apartment, kona shnein, well then he's kona both of them. Liknos es achitzon, hapnimi lo kona. But if he makes a chazaka on the inner apartment in order to be kona the outer apartment, nish, and then he's not kona anything. B'amr of Nachman and Rabbi Baravua, habone paltrin benichse ager, that if somebody builds a palace on the nichse ager, but then somebody else comes and installs doors, so that, now people can't get in. He makes an improvement. Kana, the second person's kona. My time, Akom Kama livne ba'amud apich. Very interesting. So you have nichse ager, right? You have a proselyte passes away, he doesn't have any relatives, so the halacha is, it's a mad dash, whoever can take whatever they can, it's, whatever, first come, first serve. So somebody goes to the property of the proselyte, he doesn't improve the property. Instead, what he does, he builds a mansion. Doesn't do anything to improve the property, but he builds a mansion. So he didn't actually make a chazaka. If somebody else then comes and puts up doors, he makes the chazaka. The first person built the mansion, the second person merely put up doors, he's the one who makes the kinyan. Because we said that we just treated like the first one is just moved around a bunch of stones on top of each other. Practically, in theoretical sense. But he didn't do anything to improve the property, but by putting up doors, the second person improved the property. If somebody finds, right, so a proselyte passes away and he runs to the property of the proselyte and he sees that there is a palace there. So how does he make a chazaka on the palace? V'sod bo'en siud, and he plasters some plaster on in the palace. Echod, okir echod, he makes some kind of a drawing in the palace. Kanon, so that would be an improvement to be kona the palace. V'chama, how big of the plaster or the drawing? Amr of Yosef, Amma. Yosef says it would have to be an Amma. Amr of Chizda uchneged a Pesach, and it would have to be opposite the entrance, so that it was visible, so that people would see it. He said it was a real improvement. Okay, so today, that was Daf Nun Gimel. Nun Gimel. We're going to stop here. So today we started talking about these chazakas that you like to be kona karka b'chazaka, and how you can make an improvement to the property in order to be kona. Tomorrow we're gonna learn about other types of ways to make a chazaka as well. But that was very interesting stuff. Peace out.